So you're trying to get better with your 12-mile ruck, or you're just trying to get better with ruck marching altogether. That's what landed you here on this video, and I'm super glad that you're here, because that tells me you're doing everything and anything in your power to find as many resources as possible to get better, and you're trying to meet the standard, which is good. Good on you. I think we can all feel it with the recent atmosphere of things that standards are definitely going to be taken more seriously now and going into the future. And I think that's going to be especially true with the 12-mile rucking standard for the Army. So we got to train well, we got to train right, and we got to get this done. We got to meet this standard, right? And I'm going to give you everything that you need to know in order to train appropriately, train smartly, and be able to crush that 12-mile rucking standard and still be able to walk the next day. So whether you're in the infantry or another combat MOS that does these at least once a year, maybe you're in the airborne that does it a little bit more frequently, maybe you're training up for Ranger School, it really doesn't matter. All this stuff is going to be applicable, so listen up, here we go. So first of all, if you are having a hard time meeting this standard, don't feel bad about it, all right? Or at least don't beat yourself up over it. We just have to figure out what it is that you're doing wrong, and we got to fix it, all right? This isn't something that you might just be able to do right off the street. It's a very job specific skill, ruck marching, right? You're not just doing it before you go into the military or into the Army. It's something that you have to learn, you have to practice, and you're gonna just get better with time. And it makes sense that rucking is one of the pillars to soldier fitness, right? Because the whole point of this, what we're doing here, is to help you to get better at moving heavy loads efficiently over time and building not only the physical endurance, but that mental resilience to be able to remain mission ready once you finally do get to your objective. Not to mention the personal physical fitness benefits that this activity actually gives you. I mean, it's building overall strength and endurance, because every step that you're taking is essentially a single leg squat with tons of reps over time, over the period of your ruck march. Not to mention your posterior chain, the way you're working your posterior chain and your shoulders while you're ruck marching. There is definitely strength work involved here. The core, especially, I almost forgot about the core. It's a great low impact way to improve your aerobic capacity, and you can improve your VO2 max, your stroke rate, you know, all those things way faster than you could by just running alone. It improves bone density over time, it improves ligament strength over time, and it really does help to build that mental resiliency, because let's just face it, the longer you ruck and the least amount of experience you have with it, the more it's gonna suck sometimes just moving out, right? And a lot of times it really just comes down to that mentality of it all, to just push through and finish off those last few miles. Now, unfortunately, in the Army, there isn't like a go-to blueprint for getting better at rucking. You know, there's some guidelines. Hopefully there's some good mentorship from your first lines or you know, leadership that you might have around you that are helping you out. But there isn't like a whole lot of information on how to get better at rucking. And a lot of soldiers out there end up learning the hard way through a lot of different mistakes that they make on what they should be doing instead to get better. So common mistakes that I see out there way too often, right? And you might be able to relate to this, is just adding more miles just for the sake of it. The more miles I do, the better I'm gonna get. Or just adding more weight. I'm just gonna carry a extremely heavy rucksack because if I can move more miles with more weight, I'm gonna get better. Training with no specific regard to pace work. You go out there with no specific pace goal. You just go out there, you put in some miles, and you're assuming that you're getting better. Not recovering properly, not doing the things that you should be doing after your training sessions to make sure that you're primed and ready at max capacity for the next one. And then one of the most common ones is not setting up your ruck appropriately, not wearing it right, and not using the right footwear. Now, to keep this on track, I want to give you a basic training outline on if you just don't really know where to start, this is where you need to be, okay? This is like your basic rucking improvement blueprint. And since we're training for the 12-mile ruck standard in the Army, we know that the standard there is a 35-pound ruck dry, okay, meaning it's really going to be about 45 pounds once you add your camelback full of weight and water and maybe a couple licky chewies, and then also a couple extra pounds just to make sure you're meeting the standard. So really it's about 45 pounds. And then it's just going to depend on where you are, what unit you're with, or what school you're at, on whether or not you're going to be including a combat load with all of that. But for training's sake, I'm going to give you a solid weekly breakdown on what you should be doing in order to improve. So first of all, 1 day a week, towards the beginning of the training week, you should be focused on speed work, okay? And we'll call this interval training, interval ruck training. And what that looks like is a short ruck march as opposed to a 12 miler, so maybe 4 miles. For half a mile, you're going to walk it out at a pace that's relatively comfortable, all right? So you should be striving for a 15-minute pace here. If it's a little over, that's okay, because you're gonna make it up. After that half mile, you'll go into a very fast pace ruck. Now that's gonna be dependent on your skill level. You're either gonna be stepping it out much faster than you normally would, where it's like uncomfortable for you. So at this point, you're looking at like a 14-minute mile pace for a half mile, or you're just gonna be trotting it out, is what I like to call it. Basically the airborne shuffle, okay? You're just moving out with a purpose. It's no longer a stride, now you're just sort of shuffling along. And you're gonna pick up a good minute or two easily per mile if you just do the airborne shuffle and get used to rucking that way. And when you do this speed work, you're absolutely gonna end up with an exceed the standard pace by the end of that training session. Now, after that training session, you're gonna wait 24 to 48 hours, 48 hours being optimal, but if schedule doesn't allow it, at least 24 hours, and you're gonna go out and do a moderate ruck march, which is going to be 6 miles, okay, so half the standard at a moderate pace. When I say moderate, it's somewhere in between just a relaxing stroll and balls to the wall, okay? So it's basically just going out there and moving out with a purpose. I don't want you to focus too much on pace for this one. It's kind of like a free day, but I don't want you to be too relaxed either, okay? It's still going to be challenging, but it's going to be comfortably challenging for you. And as you're doing this moderate ruck, I want you to pay attention to how it feels to be hitting the pace that you're hitting as you're doing it moderately. Pay attention to your every mile pace, okay? And pay attention to the total time it took you to do those 6 miles. And just pay attention to how it felt to get you to that pace. After that session, you're gonna wait another 24 to 48 hours and you're gonna conduct your standard simulation. So you're gonna do your 12-mile ruck march for time. And you're aiming for at least a 15-minute mile pace or better. And as you're doing that 12-miler, I want you to really fall back on the things that you were paying attention to during your interval work day, the speed day, and that moderate day. Go back and remember and focus on what it felt like to hit a certain pace when you were doing those training sessions, and use that to your advantage when you're trying to get better at the full 12 miles, right? And what I mean by that, basic words, is if you need to step it out a little better to get a little faster for one specific mile, you already know that you can do that for at least a half mile because you did it earlier in the week. Same thing as if you need a little bit of a break, you know what a moderate, easygoing ruck pace is for you. And if you know that you can afford to do that during your 12-mile ruck, that's what you're gonna do for a little bit just to catch your breath. One of the most important things that you got to be doing during all of this is making sure that you're paying attention to your pace, all right? Don't just guess. Don't just think you know what you're doing. Pay attention to your pace. I would say at least every half mile for now, until you get an idea and a better recognition of your own ability to move out at a certain speed in a certain amount of time. Use the tools that you have at your disposal. Even if you can't use them at a school you're going to or your unit, use them while you're training, because that's going to pay huge dividends for you later. You're going to be able to recognize what your capabilities are. For all those training sessions, just stick to the standard that's going to be expected to you at your ruck march, all right? So that's that appropriate weight for your ruck, 35 pounds dry. Add in your camelback or whatever it is you're going to be carrying. If you're going to like selection or something, then have your two quart canteens. Now, if you're looking for a complete training program where you don't have to worry about any guesswork whatsoever, one of our most utilized fitness programs at grittysoldier.com is called the Embrace the Ruck 8-week fitness program. It includes tips, tricks for loadout and nutrition, everything you need to know about rucking, and day-to-day fitness programming, so you don't have to apply any guesswork whatsoever. You just have to follow the plan and you get better. It's called Embrace the Ruck. You can get it at grittysoldier.com, and I will also leave a link to that in the description as well for you guys. And definitely make sure that you're hydrating and fueling appropriately during training. And again, I know a lot of you are thinking, well, I'm not going to be able to do that at these schools. I'm not going to be able to do this, at certain times. That's fine. You're training, you're building right now, all right? So you have to stay optimized so that your body can get stronger during these training sessions. And that way, when you get to the point where it's game day and the day to actually break down, you're fully built up in order to be able to take it at the best possible way. And for the nutrition piece, let's just keep it as simple as we possibly can, all right? So for every half hour, I want you to focus on getting in at least a half a liter of water and around 250 milligrams of salt. And for every 45 minutes, you want to take in something that is around 150 calories that is carb dominant, okay? So like a Cliff Bar, some energy chews, some gummies, something that is mostly quick acting carbs for yourself, okay? Stay away from the protein bars, stay away from things that are heavy in fat, because those things are just gonna slow you down. You need carbs. When it comes to post-ruck, that's when you load up on the protein, all right? And you wanna get something in that's at least 60 grams of protein within like the first hour. And really the calories that you're gonna need is gonna be like a full meal's worth. So try to adapt your training regimen to make it so that you end right before a full meal. Now let's talk about your ruck setup. First of all, the heaviest things in your rucksack should be at the top of the ruck and closest to your back, okay? I would say 70% of the weight sits there right in between your shoulder blades. That's where you want the heaviest part of your rucksack. Wear your waistband. Don't have it so tight that it's cutting off circulation or it makes it hard for you to breathe, but you want to have it around your waist so that it enables the hip pads to actually sit where they're supposed to on your hips. That's going to help you to distribute the weight appropriately and keep it off your back as much as possible. Some of the weight is just going to stay on your back, like, don't get me wrong, but that helps to spread it out a little bit if you're wearing that appropriately. It's going to help you save a lot of energy and pain in the long run of your ruck. And wear your chest strap. Okay, you can see here I don't have it super heavy, but when I lean back and actually have appropriate form, it starts to tighten up a little bit, okay? That's gonna help you to make sure that you're keeping good posture, and it's gonna do the same thing. It's gonna pull some of that weight off your shoulders and keep it more towards the front of your body rather than just your ruck pulling back on you and really putting extra strain and pain in the shoulders. Don't not do that if you can help it. I know with full battle rattle, sometimes it can be difficult to make all that happen, but try to finagle a way to make that happen even when you're wearing your full kit. Have your water source right here easily available to you. Make sure you check that it actually works and it's flowing good before you step off. You need to have easy access to your water, super important. I just let mine hang like that when I'm using a camelback. The load lifter straps right here, make sure they're fully tightened down. I always tighten mine down and then I don't just leave them hang and I tape up the rest, but I leave enough where I could grab it because sometimes they'll lose that tension, you know what I mean? Every now and then, especially if you're jogging it out a lot. You want to make sure they're tight at all times, okay? Because that's lifting the load, or at least a little bit for you. See, this one was a little loose for you as you're out there doing your ruck march. So make sure those stay tight, but make sure they're not in the way either. And your shoulder straps should stay relatively tight. This will be one of the tightest parts of the rucksack, your shoulder straps, this right here. And you want to just keep those dangling because you want to be able to adjust if you need to, if your shoulder's just hurting that day, right? Sometimes you'll have it really loose just to give some extra relief to a shoulder for a minute, but you want to be able to tighten them down almost all the way when you're out there moving out, okay? You don't want to go so much where it's cutting off circulation. You don't want your shoulders going numb, but it should be almost to that point. Something to really help to make sure that those shoulder straps are doing what they're supposed to do is just a quick bend over and a flop. Make sure you get your ruck up as high as possible and then pull backwards on your shoulder straps like that to really get all that tension out, and you'll feel, if you do it that way, your ruck sits as high as it possibly can. Now for your snacks and stuff like that, either keep it in your cargo pocket, in your front pocket. You want them to be minimal, right? You're not like carrying around a cheeseburger with you. It should be just a little small snack pack. Keep them somewhere where they're completely accessible and easily accessible on your person. You don't want to keep them in your ruck, all right? Because then you don't have access to it. You'll have to actually stop, take off your ruck. Your heart rate slows down. Your mentality kind of gets all screwed up. No, just keep them on you and keep moving out while you're taking in your nutrition. We're gonna take this off real quick so I can go over a couple more things. You want to make sure that your rucksack is completely tied down. Everything is cinched down nice and tight. That's going to minimize any moving around of the weight as you're moving out. Okay, so make sure you're cinched down. You don't have octopus legs, you know, empty straps just dangling everywhere. Everything needs to be cinched down. And you want the weight to be evenly distributed. Okay, so like I said, the heaviest stuff will be at the top of the ruck, right in between your shoulder blades. All the light stuff like your sleeping bag, your whoopee, all the lightest stuff like your padding, that just goes down here at the bottom. And all the weight needs to be equally dispersed. You want to have the same amount of weight on one side of the ruck as the other, all right? You don't want to have the right side of the ruck be 5 pounds heavier than the left, because then you're definitely going to feel that on your shoulders and on your entire posterior chain as you're walking. It's really gonna cause you some pain, so you don't wanna do that. Everything needs to be nice and evenly spread out, weight-wise. And your camelback, if that's what you're using for your water source, which I would assume most of you are doing, just lay it right here underneath the top flap. Okay, and that helps to spread out the weight evenly, and it also helps to make sure that that water pressure stays good because it's nice and cinched down up here with the top straps. Okay, so it puts a little pressure on your camelback, and to make sure that it's not going around all over the place. I see way too much these soldiers that have their camelbacks like just dangling off their ruck, or it's like on one side of the ruck. You know, a camelback weighs like 8 pounds when it's full. So that means if you have it on the side of your ruck just dangling, then you're just dangling an 8-pound weight off one side of your rucksack. There's no way that feels good. That's just the wrong answer. Don't do that. Put it underneath your top flap. Now let's talk about appropriate footwear to save your feet so you're not dealing with that pain when you're out there. That shouldn't be something that you have to worry about. You want to make sure that you have a good pair of boots that fit perfectly to you. All right, I use the Garma NFSs. I've been using them for years now. I swear by these things. Those are my boots. Whether my feet form to them, I don't know. But if I wear these boots at this point, I never get any blisters. So you have to find a pair of boots that work perfect for you. If you haven't tried the Garma NFSs, I'll drop a link in the description. I definitely recommend you try them. And you also want to make sure that you have a good pair of socks, okay? Definitely look for something with mostly wool. Merino wool is the best. My go-to socks are the Fox River Fatigue Fighters, all right? They're like this, they're long, the long Fox Rivers. And they're super soft, they're thick, okay? They can be a little warm, but they're totally worth it. They help with compression, they help with fatigue control, and I just love these socks. They last forever. I'll put a link down in the description for those as well if you want to check it out. Another really good option that I've really been liking lately are the Ruck socks. All right, I'll put a link to those as well. Those are 100% merino wool, made in the USA. Excellent rucking socks. I mean, they're made specifically for rucking, so you really can't go wrong with those. Now, if you do get blisters, and if you're not used to rucking a lot, you're probably gonna get blisters, it does happen. Try your best not to pop those blisters. Let them heal up, take care of them, baby them, and let them turn into calluses, all right? That's gonna help you in the long run, it's gonna make your feet tougher, and it's gonna stop you from getting blisters in the future. If you get blisters before your next training session, that's okay. Just tape them up a little bit, use some blister pads or some moleskins just to protect those blisters when you're out there training, all right? You really wanna try not to let those pop if you can. When you're done with your rucks, all your training sessions, every time you get out there and get after it, you've got to do a deliberate recovery session. This is static stretching, okay? And you have to at least make sure you hit the basics. You gotta make sure you hit the hamstrings, the quads, and especially the calves. The calves are gonna be your moneymaker. You gotta have loose calves. A lot of you out there that might be dealing with shin splints, I hear it all the time. More than likely, it's because you're not stretching the calves out enough. And all it takes is a simple calf stretch, just leaning against a tree, leaning against a wall. Doesn't matter, you got to get at least a couple minutes in of stretching in the calves as soon as you're done. And if you're dealing with shin splints, then just keep stretching the calves out throughout the day. That's going to help you so much. You can also do some foam rolling on the calves. That'll help you tremendously. But that recovery and getting that blood flow back into the muscle systems, releasing some of that tightness that you just instilled upon yourself, that's going to help you to, first of all, not feel so painful after your ruck. You're going to feel a lot better throughout the day and especially the next day, but it's actually going to instigate the muscle repair process much faster and much more efficiently because you're pushing additional blood flow to those damaged muscles right after the training session. So exactly when it needs to start recovering, you're giving it what it needs. All right, so you have to make sure you're doing that recovery. I can't emphasize that enough. Do it. Along with recovery is appropriate nutrition. All right, when you're out here ruck training, this is not the time to be going low on carbs. It's really not the time to be going low on much at all. You want to have a high calorie diet if you're out there putting in mileage like this, okay? Because really, in reality, you're burning at least 150 calories per mile when you're out there getting your ruck training. So that adds up a lot, especially when you're out there doing those 12-mile rucks. And your diet, when training for rucking specifically, should consist of 60% of carbs. That's a lot of carbs, right? And I'm not talking about like French fries from McDonald's. I'm talking about like fruits, honey, grains, the good kind of carbs, all right? That's what you really want to be trying to load up with. And electrolytes. Don't be afraid of the salts. You need it when you're out there working on your endurance. You know, rucking is just one of those activities that no matter what you do, it's going to cause you some pain one way or the other. All right, so you're just gonna have to suck it up and get used to it. All right, that's the best advice I can give you for that. I will tell you that it definitely gets easier over time to deal with it. And that's another one of the biggest benefits of doing this, is building up that mental fortitude. You're gonna get stronger mentally by doing this often. I would say for most of you, I think you can relate to this, it's probably around that 3 miles left, that 9-mile mark on the 12-miler, where you're really starting to feel it up here. And you're starting to think, man, this sucks. I don't know about this, right? But really, that's the time where you need to flip the switch. That's the time where you need to dig deep, suck it up, and just keep moving forward at a good pace. That's the time where you have to convince yourself it's mind over matter, and your body might be hurting, but the mind is gonna keep it moving forward anyway. So as you're out there doing your training, focus on that, pay attention to that. Pay attention to when your mind is telling you that you just don't wanna go any further, that it just sucks, it hurts, it's painful, why am I doing this? All those negative, bad things. Flip the switch, turn them into what you want them to be, and practice doing that, all right? Feel motivated, feel dedicated to what you're doing. Enjoy the pain, embrace the suck. It's only gonna make you better, man, I guarantee it. So there it is, there's your 12-mile ruck improvement breakdown. Those are the basic things that you need to be doing in order to get better. If you found any value out of this information whatsoever, make sure to hit that like button to let me know. And if you have any tips, tricks, experiences of your own, drop that in the comments for everybody. And if you have any questions, please, by all means, drop that in the comments. I will do my very best to answer them for you. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. I drop all sorts of good information for you guys on here all the time, very routinely, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Besides that, keep on keeping on, stay motivated, stay disciplined, most importantly, stay gritty, and I will see you on the next one.